Good day, grade 12s. Today we're going to be looking at an act called the Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Disease Act. Quite a mouthful, but in other words, it's about what happens if someone is injured while they are working. So this act is really there to look at the safety of the employees, and that word compensation means what are they going to get when they are injured or they contract a disease whilst they are working. So let's go on to the next slide so that you can actually see the words written out. Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Disease Act. The website is there for you to go and see that this actually does exist, and it is a law that businesses have to comply with. The Act regulates, okay, so it controls what compensation, so what money an employee could receive if he or she is injured, contracts a disease, or is even killed in the workplace. So let's look at the purpose of Coida. So the purpose is it provides a comprehensive protection to employees who are injured in the course of performing their duties. So even if you are a truck driver and you are driving, that is your job, even though you're not at the workplace, you are doing your job. And let's say you're in an accident and you hurt yourself quite badly and you now need to have an operation. Coda pays for those costs. So the business doesn't pay, the compensation fund pays. The business has to pay an annual amount to the fund so that that is where you claim from. So it also protects the employer from claims made against him by the employee. The compensation is provided to employees or the family if the employee was injured at work. If an employee is disabled due to the accident, he also claims because now he can no longer work, so he needs money to still survive. If he unfortunately passes away, the dependents get the money. However, this does not apply to military staff, the police force, casual workers. The law has changed in that domestic workers are now also covered by CODA. Let's look at the impact of CODA on businesses. The first thing about it is that it really promotes safety in the workplace. Employers are now forced to make sure that their workplace is healthy and safety. It supplies administrative guidelines for dealing with claims, so it helps the business know what they need to do when there is a claim. It eliminates time and costs spent on any court proceedings because if the business has done the right thing, the employee cannot put a court case against them. The negative side of it is that the claiming process can be very time consuming. And with all these things, it's costly paperwork and it's just an extra administrative burden on your staff already. All workers have to be registered and annual contributions must be made. So these annual contributions are made by the business, so it does affect their cash flow. Moving on now, let's look at the discriminatory actions according to CODA. The first one is preventing employees from a specific racial group or a specific gender in reporting an accident or an injury is seen as discriminatory. Okay, so you can't say, oh, sorry, you can't claim because you are a certain race group or because you're a female. It also provides, you have to provide protective clothing, okay, to everyone. If you only provide it to your male employees, that is seen as discriminatory, right? Delaying the submission of claim forms for an injured employee who regularly reports late for work. So you can't say, oh, just because you come late to work, I'm now going to hold your claim form back. That is discriminatory. It is not fair. It's not treating everyone in the business fairly. Let's look at the penalties for non-compliances. The businesses can be fined for refusing to lodge the claim. Businesses can be forced to make large payments if it did not take the necessary precautions according to the Act. So there's certain signs and there's certain things that a business must do so that they are not negligent. They may be forced to pay any recovery costs required by the compensation fund. Let's say the injury was so bad and there wasn't enough money to be able to claim from the fund. The business, if they were negligent, will have to then pay that amount. So these next two slides are really about what the employee and the employer need to do. So in other words, it's about how to comply with this act. So in terms of the employee, You have to ensure that you're not injured as a result of your serious or deliberate misbehavior. So, for example, if you're given a hard hat to wear and you choose not to wear it, and then you are injured, you can't claim for that because you didn't take responsibility for your own well-being. You need to notify the employer as soon as possible about an injury that has occurred. Okay? You have to submit medical reports to assess the injury that happened. I once worked on a farm, and the farm manager came with an injury 6 months after the original incident occurred, and he now wanted to claim from the compensation fund. And unfortunately, the compensation fund said, sorry, you took too long to put this claim through. What are the responsibilities of the employer? Okay. The employer must determine the level of risk to the employees. So you have to understand, as an employer, if you own a retail store, the dangers there are far less than if you were working at a mine, right? So depending on the working environment, the risk level is different. You must notify the compensation commissioner in time of any incident that occurred, and you have to ensure that the environment is safe for your staff. And if we think of COVID, a lot of businesses have had to look at how safe the environment really has been. The last thing I want to talk about here is ways to comply with Coida. So the first thing is provide a safe and healthy workspace. And we have added to all our normal hard hats and harnesses and safety signs, we've added disinfectants and hand sanitizers and social distancing markers and masks to our arsenal of protective gear. The next thing you need to do is you need to register with the compensation fund. And you have to do this by law. Okay, you have to comply with this law. You also need to keep records of any incidences for at least 4 years. So I hope that that has helped and that you have a better understanding of Coida. And as I said, every business has to comply with this act and contribute to it by paying an annual fee. Have a good day, everyone, and keep safe.